The wild thing about Pluribus right now is that the show keeps telling us the biggest mystery in the universe might not be solved by the lab guys in Goldstone, but by a pissed-off storage manager in Paraguay who lives on dog food and spite. Manousos looks like a side character, grumpy, hungry, surrounded by junk. But the more we see of him, the more it feels like he's being set up as the person who can crack the real question behind the joining, not just what the RNA did to humanity, but who sent it in the first place and why. Before we get into the theory, quick YouTube brain break. If you're into deep, slightly unhinged Pluribus breakdowns, where we connect one grumpy guy in a shed to a galaxy-spanning mystery, hit subscribe and stick around. That way you'll catch every new episode, breakdown, and theory the second it drops, instead of trying to decode this hive alone. Alright, let's talk about why Manousos might be the key to the senders, not just the signal. Back in episode 1, everything looked simple on the surface. A deep space facility, basically Goldstone, picks up a repeating microwave signal from about 600 light years away. It's pulsing every 78 seconds, like a cosmic heartbeat. At first it seems like some kind of encrypted message, until one scientist realizes it's actually an RNA sequence. They do the classic sci-fi thing, convert the RNA into DNA, inject it into lab rats, and watch what happens. That's the first domino that leads to the joining, the hive mind, and the end of human free will as we knew it. But even in that first episode, the show plants a second question under all the horror. Not, what does the signal do, but who sent something this powerful, and why are they contacting us this way? Later, the story hints that whoever sent that RNA might not be done with Earth. We're told that far away somewhere past the planet, the ones who sent the message could already be on their way here. So the signal wasn't just a one-time freak event. It was the start of a relationship. A very toxic one. The problem is, everyone who really touched the original message, the Goldstone astronomers, the military, the researchers, are all part of the hive now. Their memories belong to the others. There's no clean, human viewpoint left inside that system. Except for people like Carol, and now people like Manousos. When Zosha lists the immune survivors to Carol on the plane in episode 3, they sound like a random cross-section of humanity. A candy vendor in Istanbul, a contortionist in Bali, a retired fisherman in Sardinia, a little kid in Lesotho, a muezzin in Yemen, and a storage facility manager from Paraguay, Manousos Oviedo. He's the one survivor who doesn't even want to talk to the others, let alone meet them. Episode 4 finally shows us who this guy actually is. He's holed up alone in the storage facility he used to run before the joining. He refuses the food trays the hive leaves for him at the gate. He's so stubborn about not accepting anything from them that he'll starve first, licking the bottom of his last food can before he finally breaks his own rules and starts prying open other people's storage units for scraps. Even then, he writes an apology note for the renters, because some part of him still believes the world might go back to normal, and he'll have to face what he did. That alone tells you two things about Manousos. He hates the hive more than almost anyone we've seen. He's still living as if rules and records matter. And then there's his real obsession, that homemade radio setup with the timer. He sits for long hours in front of a rig that looks patched together from whatever he could find, listening and writing down frequencies as they come in. While the rest of the world is cleaning up after the joining or wandering around in hive bliss, Manousos is doing what the people at Goldstone were doing in episode 1, watching the sky and keeping a log. That makes him unique among the immune. The others are focused on comfort, survival, philosophy, or moral questions. Manousos is doing data. Think about what happened to Earth's science infrastructure when the joining hit. The Goldstone researchers who first analyzed the signal joined. The military biolab that turned the RNA into DNA and injected the rats joined. The global science community that might have reviewed or challenged whatever they did also joined. Now, everything those people knew lives inside the hive mind. But the hive is not neutral. It has a built-in survival protocol. It will always protect the virus and the joining first, even if that means holding back the truth or literally refusing to let Zosha answer a question. We see that clearly when the hive stops her from telling Carol anything about reversing the joining. The defensive directive overrides their need to please her. So here's the key. All the official tools that touched the original deep space signal now belong to a system that is programmed not to help anyone threaten it. Manousos is the opposite of that system. He has his own radio equipment built outside US or hive control, a log of what he's been hearing written by hand for himself. Zero interest in helping the hive and every reason to expose it. In story terms, that makes him something like the last independent radio telescope on Earth. He's sitting in a self-storage bunker in Paraguay, listening to whatever is still coming from deep space, and unlike the others, he has no built-in filter telling him, don't follow this idea, don't ask that question, don't tell anyone what you found. We know the original signal repeated every 78 seconds, and was strong enough that Goldstone could localize it to around 600 light-years away. But signals like that don't just blink out of existence because Earth had a bad year. If whoever sent that RNA is still out there, and the show has already hinted they might be on the move toward us, then it makes sense that the transmission would keep going, change, or even spawn new signals as the situation on Earth changes. Here's where Manousos' timer becomes really interesting. The new trailer for the Pendragon cycle just dropped. Right away it feels huge and cinematic, like something that belongs on a big screen, not just in a random scroll. The sets, costumes, and locations look rough, real, and lived in, like people actually fight, sleep, and bleed in this world. It has that classic high fantasy atmosphere, but with enough grit that you believe this is a real place with its own history. What makes it even more exciting is that it's based on the novels by Stephen R. Lawhead, so there's a real book-to-screen depth behind it. This isn't just a one-off story. This is the foundation of the Arthurian legend. Young Merlin is the main character here, and you can feel that his journey is what opens the path for King Arthur to rise later. The trailer teases epic battles, powerful magic, and a deep world that's ready to be explored over multiple chapters. There's been a serious gap in this kind of big mythic fantasy for a while, and the Pendragon cycle really looks like it's stepping in to fill that space. The Pendragon cycle, Rise of the Merlin, premieres exclusively on Daily Wire Plus on January 22nd, 2026. Click the link in the video description to watch the trailer now. He sits at that radio table with a countdown setup of his own, logging what comes in at specific times. That's not a casual hobby. That's someone who has noticed patterns. So here's the theory. Manousos is already picking up secondary traffic related to the joining, extra beacons, control pings, or status reports between Earth and whoever sent the RNA. He just doesn't know what he's looking at yet. Because the Goldstone team focused on turning the RNA into DNA and building new life out of it, they might have thrown away or ignored parts of the signal that didn't look like useful biology. They got obsessed with what does this code do to a body, and less with what extra information tags travel with it. Manousos doesn't have that bias. He's not wet lab, he's radio. To him, every little change in timing or frequency matters. If the senders are checking whether the joining completed successfully, adjusting the signal now that Earth is mostly hive, or sending updated instructions to their software on the planet, then those tweaks will show up first in the timing, power, and shape of the signal. And the only person left on Earth obsessively tracking that raw feed, without hive interference, is Manousos. There's also the moral side of this. Manousos is the kind of person who will starve rather than eat the hive's food, but still write an apology note before stealing someone's dog food. He keeps rules. He tracks debts. He remembers who owns what. That sounds small, but it matters when you're trying to decode intent. The hive keeps telling Carol that the joining is about peace, equality, ending pain, wiping out war, and suffering. And to be fair, on the surface, that's kind of what happens. No more crime, no more poverty, a world where everyone is calm and happy, at least on the outside. But Manousos looks at the exact same system and sees theft on a cosmic scale. The virus steals your mind, your choices, your memories, and gives them to everyone. From his point of view, that's not a gift. It's a robbery disguised as a miracle. So when he looks at the signal, he won't read it as some noble spiritual upgrade from the stars. He'll treat it like a contract. He'll look for loopholes, for fine print, for the parts that show who it was really written to benefit. And that's where who sent this becomes easier to answer. If the signal structure looks messy, human, like the people who built it were trying to protect Earth in the long run, even if it went horribly wrong, then it leans toward the future humans sent this to save us idea. The show floated early on. If the signal looks cold, optimized, and packed with self-preservation rules that treat host minds like disposable hardware, then it starts to feel more like something a non-human species or machine civilization would design. Especially if that survival protocol we see inside the hive, where the virus won't let Zosha say anything that could threaten it, is echoed in the radio patterns themselves. Manousos, who hates the hive and still cares about individual ownership and consent, is exactly the kind of person who will notice those values baked into the message. Right now, Carol has 3 big advantages that Manousos doesn't. First, she knows the hive's limits. She's learned that the others can't lie to her, even when the truth hurts, like when they tell her Helen thought her books were harmless and never finished her big, serious novel. That honesty rule is so strong she can add "can't lie" to her whiteboard. Second, she knows there is a way to reverse the joining, because Zosha's silence about it was basically an answer in itself. The hive literally locks up when she pushes on that question. Third, she's in direct contact with the others every day. She can ask them specific things, she can poke at their programming, and they are desperate to keep her alive and happy, at least for now. What Carol doesn't have is a clean record of the cosmic side of all this. She's not tracking the sky. She doesn't know what's changed in the signal since Goldstone first heard it. She doesn't have years of little notepads full of frequencies and timestamps. Manousos does. He, in turn, has no way to question the hive without immediately getting smothered by kindness. No way to test their honesty rules. No Zosha, no Larry, no list on a whiteboard of what I know about them. Carol has already done that work. That's why the show keeps hinting that he'll eventually seek her out. He writes her name down after she curses him on the phone, not because he's offended, but because that rudeness proves she's not part of the joining. Put them together, and you get something dangerous. Manousos brings the raw, unfiltered history of the radio signal, and whatever has been piggybacking on it since the joining. Carol brings the ability to cross-check that against the hive's own answers, using their can't lie rule and their weird survival protocol. Ask the right questions with the right data, and suddenly you're not just guessing, you're triangulating. Is the source of the signal moving relative to our star in a way that matches a natural orbit? Has the timing or encoding changed since the joining completed? Do the changes line up with what the hive did on Earth? Like flipping people all at once or locking down certain memories? The others can't lie when she asks, do the people who sent this signal also exist in your memories? Or did this code come from any human civilization you've ever processed? They might refuse to answer some things, but silence is data too. That's how you go from mystery signal to it's probably these guys. The show hasn't told us outright who sent the RNA yet, but if Manousos is the key, then the answer probably has to fit the kind of truth he can expose. Whatever the senders are, their fingerprints should be visible in both places, in the way the signal behaves over time, which Manousos is logging, and in the rules coded into the virus and the hive, which Carol is testing. If both sets of clues line up as this was built by something that sees individual people as expendable parts of a bigger mind, then the senders are likely a hive species themselves, or a machine network that spreads by rewriting biology. The virus's built-in defense rules, the way it blocks talk of reversal, the way it centers its own survival over everything else, all of that would feel like their style. If instead the patterns show more hesitation, more weird compromises, more human-style mistakes, like a signal that had to be hacked through biology because the senders only understood RNA well enough to brute force it, then you're closer to that future humans trying to fix their past theory that Episode 1 floated. Either way, the people inside the hive are never going to be the ones to admit it. The virus has a survival protocol that literally stops them from telling Carol how to undo it. That same instinct would also stop them from offering up the cosmic receipts on who wrote the code. So the job falls to the guy sitting by the radio, writing down numbers while he chokes down dog food and refuses their kindness. From a story angle, Pluribus doesn't spend this much time on someone like Manousos by accident. We could have heard about some guy in Paraguay and left it at that. Instead, the show gives him a whole cold open. His little ritual with the timer, the apology note, the way he almost gags on the dog food but eats it anyway, the way he flinches away from hive offerings like they're traps. He's being framed as the mirror image of Carol. She's the emotional, messy, impulsive one, blowing up her yard with a grenade and accidentally almost killing Zosha twice. He's controlled, methodical, stubborn, quietly doing the work instead of talking about it. Carol is learning how the hive works from the inside. Manousos is quietly mapping the thing that started it all from the outside. When those two finally end up in the same room, that's when the universe of Pluribus really opens up. Because then it's not just, how do we stop this on Earth? It becomes, who did this to us? Where are they now? And what do we send back along that same line when we're ready to answer? And that's why, out of everyone still breathing in this world, the grumpy guy with the radio might be the one who finally tells us who sent the RNA from deep space. Because he's the only one still listening. And that's where we'll leave Manousos for now. Alone with his radio, the one guy stubborn enough to keep listening while the rest of the planet goes quiet. If Pluribus keeps heading the way it's going, this man might be the only thing standing between Earth and whatever's still talking to us from deep space. If you want more breakdowns like this, big galaxy-sized ideas, small human hearts, and all the wild theories in between, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next Pluribus deep dive the moment it drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.